Living in Color, a candid, open, honest conversation about culture in America and our personal experiences as minorities. I'm your moderator, Leah Wilson. This discussion was inspired by our very own 6 News reporter, Jasmine Caldwell, whose piece about wearing natural hair in the workplace airs right after this. Getting in on today's conversation are a few 6 News team members, senior producer Crystal Pratt.
Hi, yes, I am Crystal. I am the senior producer here, and I've been here 17 years.
Jasmine Caldwell.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Caldwell. I'm a reporter here at Channel 6. I have been here 2 years. Not quite as long as Crystal, but 2 years.
Ryan Fight.
Hello, everyone. I'm the evening photojournalist, and I've been here 2 years.
And Maria Aguilera.
Hi, everyone. I am Maria Aguilera, and I am a morning reporter. I've been here a little over a year.
Now, Jasmine's piece wasn't the only piece that inspired this. We also have the Free the Hair movement, which is sweeping the country, and many of you may have heard about. The Crown Act, which is big in major cities like New York, California, and Maryland. And it's a push to ban discrimination against hair in the workplace. And there are so many other things like this that made us want to talk about this today. So, but we're not going to just talk about hair. We're going to talk about other things like code switching and topics that we've learned growing up. Let's kick off the conversation, guys. Y'all ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, absolutely.
So here's the first question. Let's talk about this. How were you taught to navigate culture as a minority?
Oh, man.
Maria, you want to start?
Sure. Well, my parents have always taught me to work really hard. First of all, Spanish was my first language, so I learned English in school. So it was always like you have to work hard because, you know, some of your classmates already know the language, and you're going to have to work a little bit harder. So I was just always very encouraged at home, just work hard, do what you have to do, never give up. So I've just always had that mentality of never quitting and just not really feeling different, but just, you know, you have to just keep working always.
Crystal, did you have any experiences where you were taught maybe something different than your white counterparts may have been taught?
Yeah, I mean, I think the major thing, like, it goes back to hard work. My family always put in me that you have to work harder than your white counterparts because, you know, they may have upper leg already, and so you're going to have to work harder. Being a woman and being a black woman, you're going to have to work even harder to get ahead in life, and so that's where it all like started for me, was realizing like, wow, you know, like I have to work harder. Why, you know? And that's where it started for me.
Jasmine, how about you?
You know what? Hard work, yes. I was going to say the same thing. And kind of because, like Crystal said, you have to work 2 times, twice as hard, I should say, than your white counterparts. And that's just to get ahead in life. Because, you know, sometimes, you know, as African Americans, we may have the same opportunities as our white counterparts, but we got to work twice as hard to either keep that job, or keep whatever, you know, in the classroom, only because it's kind of like we're already at a disadvantage. You know, for me, one, I'm black and I'm a female, so it's already like 2 strikes. So you have to work twice as hard to get places.
Ryan, did you have any experiences like that?
Oh, yes, I agree with
And it's a little different for you because you're the only male on the panel. So I wonder, like, being black and male, was your experience any different than ours?
Yes, growing up, I was always taught, just like Crystal and Jasmine, to work hard, to work twice as hard, because a lot of times I was the only African American man in the room. And so growing up in a small town where I'm the minority, not just in general, but also in the classroom, it instilled in me instilled values in me that I have to also not just fit in, but also stay true to myself.
I know for me, same thing, work 10 times as hard. But like in my household, my mother was when it came to education, she did not play. And I was not allowed to speak slang in my house. So it was you need to speak properly, you know, because you cannot show, I don't want to say
culture.
weakness. Yes,
The culture.
yes, you can't show your culture.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why she named me Leah, because it was neutral name, and on paper, no one would know whether I was black, white, Hispanic, whatever. And she felt like that would give me an equal opportunity.
Yeah, back in my family, off of that, giving the equal opportunity, giving you the name Leah to make it easier on you instead of having a name like LaQuencia or something like that, you know, which are beautiful names in themselves, you know, like, but my family felt the same way, that it would give an advantage of some sort. And it got even as far with my family, and it's a story that like I don't share with people, and I don't want my mom to be mad at me because I love my mom. Sorry, Mom. But even my mom, I think she was taught so much that she has to act a certain way, has to look a certain way. When I was born, being that I was a lighter complected black person, my mom had a hard time letting me go play outside because she didn't want me to get darker, because she felt it's a very strange
how
thing.
many times have you heard, you know, oh, the sun's out, like, oh my gosh, you get in the house, you're gonna get black.
Yeah,
you know, you're gonna
right.
get too
Like, I
black.
don't want you to get too black.
Look
Yeah.
at my skin, I'm too dark, you know.
And but that's instilled in us, and I think that's that's another thing that why you wanted to start this conversation too, was people don't realize exactly what we're told by our families, and our families think they're doing right by us, which is, I get it, you know, but at the same time, it's really messing you up in the head a little bit. And so,
Maria, how about you, coming from a Latino background, were you ever taught like don't speak Spanish or be careful where you show your accent or anything like that?
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, like my name, you know, and I say it on air and everything, I say Maria Aguilera, but really my name is Maria Aguilera, you know, like that's actually that's my birth name, and that's my last name. But just to make it easier for people, you know, because you don't want them to mess up your name, and it's just easier. And so going to school, I've always said my name as Maria, you know, and so, but going home, I always speak Spanish with my parents and with my family over the phone. That's the language that I speak. And so it was always kind of a thing of, unless people asked, I didn't just go and say, I'm Mexican. And just like, you know, when we're talking about color, a lot of people in, you know, Mexico are a lot darker than I am as well. Just like there's people that are a lot lighter than I am, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes. And so that's just something that you just kind of try to blend in a little bit. You know, because I was a little bit lighter, you just kind of not try to show people all the time, yeah, I'm Mexican. You know, if you ask, you see my name, it's Maria, you know, and then you can see me, you're like, yeah, you're Hispanic. But it wasn't like I was always wearing it.
Right. Now, talking about color, when did you realize that you were different or not white? Was there a point at which you were like, oh, wait, she's different than I am?
You know what? I don't think I ever looked at, like, maybe I don't know, like my skin, or said that, hey, I'm different than, you know, someone. And it's probably because I grew up, like, you know, I grew up in a black household. I lived in a black neighborhood. I went to a predominantly black school. So I think I always knew that I was black. I never said, oh my gosh, I'm different from him or her. You know, it didn't hit that I was different until, you know, you get older, you become an adult, and then you start seeing, you know, things that may have been like little races or may have been unfair. So it hit later on in life, but not as a child.
What about you, Ryan?
For me, I would say going to school, like always being a minority in a group of mostly white people, I didn't really notice much of a difference until I was in the 5th grade. I had taken a test and I was confident. I remember I studied so hard for it. Went and took it to the teacher to grade it. She couldn't believe that I got a 100 and accused me of cheating.
Wow.
And at that moment, I cried, and it was just a moment of realizing, why am I not being believed? But when, you know, my white student counterpart is getting the same grade, why aren't they being accused? Why is this happening to me? What is it about me? Is it the way I look?
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
my experience.
Yeah. I can distinctly remember the first time that I was told I was different, and it wasn't by a white person, it was by another black person. And I have almost all my life I have been, "Ooh, girl, you talk white. Why do you talk like you white? Where, you know?" And I was bullied for it. And I distinctly remember going to a friend's house, and I can't remember if it was her. I was young, and I can't remember if it was her aunt or her mother, but she called me uppity because of the way that I speak, and I had no idea what that meant. And I went home, and I was like, "Well, Mom, why am I uppity? What does that mean?" And she told me that I talk white, and I was never allowed to go to her house again. My mother kind of explained, but it wasn't until later that I knew what that really meant. And it changed me, because you're taught that it's a black against white thing, or a color against white thing, and then to see it from one of your own, it was like, oh, okay.
To feed off of that a little bit, that was when it goes back to that question also, when did you realize you were different? For me, it was exactly that too, getting it from both sides, because growing up for me, I realized I was different immediately in school, because I could never fit in exactly with the white crowd, and I couldn't fit in with the black crowd. I wasn't white enough to hang out with the white folks. I wasn't black enough to hang out with black people. I also didn't sound black, and so that was another one. And the thing that really got me the most was I would get it mostly from my black counterparts. I would have the hardest time, because no one would believe me. To this day, I still have people when I say, "Oh, well, you know, as a black woman, this and that," and I will have people say to me, "Well, you're not
Girl, you
black,
ain't
black."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what does that mean? I'm pretty sure. Oh, but you're not. Yeah, exactly. And it would be like, you're not black enough. I was never black enough. I was never white enough. So I became a unicorn. Like, I don't know. Like, it just, you are. And so, but it goes back to, like, it is tough getting it from your own race and having to deal with other races still not accepting you for being different. And it's tough.
Maria, what about you?
I had a similar experience to Jasmine. I mean, I grew up with my own community. And so, like, all the schools that I went to, it was literally like half Hispanic and the other half was black. And so I grew up in both communities, and there was like maybe 10 white kids at my school. So that was like the minority at where I went to school. And so for us, you feel comfortable and you feel empowered because you're with your own people, so you don't really deal with that. And there's just, I'm from Houston, and it's just so diverse, and there's so many people. So I kind of grew up, in my own culture and in the black culture as well, and just you get used to it. And so I never really had a moment where I was like, oh, I'm different, because all of my friends were like,
you weren't different.
Yeah, I wasn't. All of my friends were like me. And it wasn't until, going to college or maybe later in the workplace that I didn't necessarily feel different, but I was like, oh, okay, the way that I act sometimes is a little different. And because all my friends acted like me, and so sometimes the vocabulary as well, I was like, oh, my vocabulary isn't like I thought it was, because there's people that grew up, in a white household, and or even watch news in English. I mean, I work in news now, but I grew up watching news in Spanish. I watched, Telemundo and stuff like that. So it was, for me, it was similar to Jasmine in a way, growing up with your own.
Did you, when you had those experiences and you noticed, oh, I am a little different, I do talk different, did you ever feel that you needed to tone down who you are in the workplace when you started working around more white people, or you were, submerged in the white culture?
Just the thing is, I guess you try not to get it in your head too much, but maybe don't be too Mexican. But it's not that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm proud of my culture and I'm proud of where I'm from, but I also love this country as well. So, and there's so many people that are welcomed me and my family and everyone. So it's not really like a race war or anything, but I do sometimes think maybe don't put your culture out there too much. Just, because it's not that necessary unless you're asked or something like that. You
don't want to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, you don't want to make people uncomfortable.
I've experienced that a lot, like at work, wherever you work, or school, whatever. Like you try, like she said, try not to make them feel like uncomfortable if you are too black, too Hispanic, too Mexican, but it's just really, you know, being yourself. So you try to, you know, act a little more
Proper.
proper. You try to blend in, you know, because with me being too black, then the questions start coming in, and it's like, why'd you say that? Why'd you talk like that? You eat that kind of food. What is that? You know, and then it's like, I don't feel like coming to work explaining myself every day. I don't feel like explaining why, for example, it's Thanksgiving. What is a chitlin? Why do you eat chitlins? What, like, I don't want to explain it. And I know people are probably going, like, she eat chitlins? Yes, I do. But it's like, you know, but then when I come and I be cultured Jasmine, black Jasmine, and then it's like my white counterparts just got a million and one questions.
And well, and let's not forget also, and when you do come, just being yourself, just being yourself, people don't take you as seriously.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've noticed too. It's like you be like, I'm a goofy person, period. But being black on top of that, and being goofy Crystal, or maybe doing little things like sometimes, you know, just I get ghetto a little times. I don't know if that's the right thing to say. We had a culture forum, so, you know. But like, it also goes back to, though, people, you're taught to act a certain way as a black person, so you will be taken seriously. Because if you're yourself, they're not going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And so, I had to deal with that.
That's very true. That is very true. I want to go back to something that Jasmine said, though. It made me think of a question. I know that I have done this when I'm packing my lunch in the morning, and there are certain things that I will not eat at work because
What? Like what?
I won't eat fried chicken at work. What? I will not bring fried chicken to work. I won't. I'm just being honest.
Because when I bring fried chicken to work, I gotta bring hot sauce.
I mean, I'm just keeping it real.
Leah with that dang fried chicken.
I get what you mean, because like I said, you don't. What are you eating? And then it's like.
Chicken.
Your hands all greasy. Me, if I bring fried chicken, then I gotta bring my hot sauce because I can't eat it without hot sauce.
So now everybody looking at y'all like, I knew it.
I think she had hot sauce in her bag.
Then you got the whole office smelling.
But that does, I mean, we're laughing at it, but it's things like that you think of as a black person.
Right.
You don't want to be stereotyped. Yeah, you don't want to be stereotyped.
I don't eat watermelon anyway, but if I did, I wouldn't eat it at work.
You wouldn't eat it at work?
I
I couldn't either. I couldn't either. I didn't even think about that. I have avoided watermelon when it's been at work. I have avoided it like, they ain't gonna do that to me today. Let me get this macaroon.
I will say something. I like to see like the best in people, you know, and sometimes I think that, just speaking from my personal experience, sometimes I do those things to myself, and maybe my white counterparts or coworkers aren't even trying to make me feel uncomfortable, and I do that to myself, or I'm making myself less, and they're like, they're not even worried about it.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay, that's like,
Maria
no one
has a good
even,
point.
That is a
no one
really
even
good
cares
point.
what you're, you know,
That-
but
yeah.
I think we do that to ourselves, and we just try to control our situation just to not be asked questions, or not to be look
So
differently. But sometimes they don't even worry about what you're eating, what you're wearing, sometimes
so
they are.
worried.
Yeah. But so I like to see the best in people, and so sometimes we do that to ourselves, which is sometimes worse, you know, than people making us feel that way.
And it may go back to what we were taught as children, you know,
Yeah.
don't be too black, don't be too Hispanic, you know, like, and what you eat is, has been stereotyped as black food, Latino food. Everybody eats fried chicken. I know that. Y'all. I know everybody
but
eats
a black
fried
person
chicken.
eating fried chicken,
It's different.
it makes a black
It's
person think
different.
about it depending on who they're eating it in front of.
Right.
And so,
Right. Very true.
Yeah, you might have a very good point, Maria.
And that is a good point. So let me ask you this. Have you ever tried to pass to fit in? And when I say pass, I mean switch the way you speak, switch the way you talk, changed your hair so that you would fit in with, culturally.
Interesting.
Definitely the way I talk. I know that.
Yeah.
I know I get to this day, when I answer the phone, this is Crystal, thank you for calling Channel 6. you don't know who's on the other end. And so I know I've done that. And before I started wearing my hair, I would straighten my hair a lot because natural hair wasn't as accepted as it is now. And so.
Yeah, I would say, especially like being in this business, being on TV. I mean, I don't use any chemicals in my hair, but I straighten my hair all the time because, for so long, we've heard that wearing an afro on air may not be appropriate, or
Unless it's BET.
unless it's BET.
Right.
Wearing dreadlocks or braids, which are becoming more acceptable, but back when I first started, that was taboo. That was a no. And then because you have to realize too, in this business, like television news, a lot of the bosses, a lot of the higher ups are white males, most of the time, who don't understand that. They see straight hair is best, or straight hair is the way to go.
Put together.
Right.
Yeah, or natural hair, or what they consider a black hairstyle was, inappropriate, or dreads, or you don't look clean, things like that. So, I mean, since I started this business, I've been straightening my, my hair. I mean, I used to, wear, fake hair and the weaves and all that stuff, but then I start wearing my hair, but I continue to straighten it. I don't wear it curly or kinky on air.
Do you think that'll change? Do you think you'll ever do it?
You know what? That's a good question. I have, sometimes I'll do it on the weekends or something, but I think I will. But you know how it is, Crystal. And I'm a reporter, so by the time it'll be looking good when I leave the house, but by the time 5 o'clock comes, it's like,
Yeah.
So if I'm, in the studio more, maybe.
Okay, I think that. Yeah. Noted.
Ryan, Maria, have you ever switched or changed to fit in culturally?
I would say for me, it would be the way I dress. I feel like being around mostly white people, I feel like I have to, in the workplace, I have to feel like I have to dress up extra. It wasn't until when I first started in the news business, I dressed up every day to the nines, and it wasn't until I actually started here that I felt comfortable dressing more comfortably, still professional, but comfortably, to be able to, I cover a lot of crazy things like weather and accidents and everything where I'm just getting dirty, and I need to wear tennis shoes and everything. And
But you felt like you couldn't.
yeah, at first I felt like I couldn't. I was wearing dress shoes and
I can't even imagine showing up at a crime scene in a three-piece suit.
Suited and booted. But you're right, though. I feel you on that.
And that's interesting that in Central Texas, this is the first place that you felt like you could be comfortable and dress. I know, I can say that it wasn't until I came to Texas that I started to dress more urban. Thank you. That's a good word. I started to dress more urban. Previously, like in Pennsylvania, no, I would not have done that. I would not have, because I was a lot of times the only one in the
only
room,
black person.
the only black person, the only person of color, period, in the room. So I felt like I gotta represent everybody.
You can't stand out.
So I can't stand out. I gotta make sure I make us look good, y'all. So it was a lot of that, and it wasn't until I came to Texas, to Houston first, and then here, that I could wear my Black Journalists Matter shirt or red, black, and green, where I would never have done that before I came here.
And I think jobs are shifting in that way. I noticed, like he said here, he didn't realize until he came to KCN, you started feeling more comfortable when you came to KCN. And I kind of do have to give credit to our higher ups that we have, like our bosses, because they are. I know Jim, one of our bosses, Jim. Yeah, he comes. Jim he's not afraid to ask.
Right.
He's asked me, why don't you wear your natural hair? He said it, and he's not afraid to open up the discussion in a way that makes everybody comfortable. And so I do have to say that that's not something you get everywhere, and that's a good thing about working in the department and with all these wonderful people we work with, is that you have to be comfortable enough. You have to have a boss. We have to start
Right.
becoming
Mhm. Start from the top.
bosses, and we have to start becoming these CEOs that makes everyone feel inclusive and not like they have to wear a three-piece suit to a crime scene, you know, while shooting it. And so, yeah, man, that's cool.
Good. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to add? I don't, I didn't think that today we would be solving all of life's color issues, but I did want to just open up the dialogue, because often we have these conversations amongst ourselves, but we never, well, I shouldn't say never, some of us won't have it with non-colored folks. So I wanted to open it up and just talk about our experiences and let people in on the conversations that we have amongst ourselves and let the world know
I'm
how we're
glad we
feeling
did
and what's
this.
going on.
This is
Me
pretty
too.
cool. I can't
too.
wait. Maybe we can bring some more people in later.
I would love to do this again and have everybody around the table and answer some hard questions and talk about the things that we're afraid to talk about in public.
Yeah.
I would
Sometimes you
love
just don't
do
want to
that.
get into it. You know, you
Right.
ask questions, and I just don't really want to get into it, and it's just, you just
Yeah.
kind of let it go. You're like, okay, well, that's how you feel, or that's what you think,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they think something, and a lot of things. That's the thing, people sometimes draw the line with racism a lot. They think like, oh, not everything is racist.
Right.
There are some things that are just they may be ignorant,
Right.
and you just don't really
Which is
feel
a
like
very different thing.
Right, that's very different, and you just don't feel like getting into it, and you're just like, okay, and you understand somebody. Maybe you think that way because you don't really know, so you're just like, okay, I get where you're coming from, and I'm not going to get into that.
Which is one of the great things I think about working here too. And Maria, because in the morning, we'll have some really deep conversations about why can't I say this? Or Leah, is this offensive to you? And why would it offend someone else? And that is the great thing about being in this business, and especially in this newsroom, because there are so many open-minded people here who are not afraid to ask the questions, and I'm not afraid to answer them. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's good to have this conversation too, to just kind of get things, off of, our chests. Talk about things. Well, no, not
No,
like
no,
that.
I feel you
but
though,
you know,
but-
how you think you're the only one that may feel a certain
Right.
way
Yes.
or think a certain way, but then you talk about it with people, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you feel a little
Great
better.
conversation. Great conversation.
good. Well, we want to thank all of you for joining us, joining in the conversation. And now we want you to stay. Tune in to 6 News, because right now, Jasmine's piece, where she's taking a deep dive into the world of natural hair, from afros to twist outs, dreadlocks. You heard from city officials and community leaders who decided it was important for them to embrace their natural beauty and just do what they do with their hair. So thank you for joining us, and until next time.
Peace.
Bye, guys.